right. All right. So, hello, everyone. I am Willina. I am your NEMT startup coach. I am so grateful to be here today. We are with Niko with Sparks, and Sparks is a healthcare transportation insurance, and we're going to learn a lot more about this type of insurance versus commercial insurance. I am so excited to have you on today, Niko, and I'm just going to let you go ahead and share with us what you have to offer.
Great. Yeah. Well, Lena, thank you for, again, chatting with me. And then, like I mentioned, hopefully a lot of what we talk about now, insurance on the commercial auto, general liability, professional liability, workers' comp, a lot of this is required for, I know a lot of the providers that you work with, and is required by a lot of the transport brokers that are working with providers as well. So it's something that it's a necessary evil, but obviously should be, well known about by providers so that they can maximize the value they're getting out of the insurance, lower the price that they have on that insurance, rather than just checking the box off every year and just saying, it is what it is. I'm paying $100,000. That's just how it works. So, hopefully we can elucidate a lot of that for folks as they work through that. So, real quick, I'll just pull up this presentation that we always go through, and it gives a great starting point for a lot of that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there you go, right?
I love it.
What we'll go through is just kind of a general overview on why insurance is so much, some of the great ways, very actionable ways that folks can cut down on that cost, and some suggestions that we have as well as a brokerage that either folks can work with us to help fix those problems or work with our current broker too. I want, a lot of this we think of as everyone should know this. And so if there are issues that we can help many folks on, that's how we want to figure that out. So including my info here, obviously, and then our NEMTprotect.com, that has all of our NEMT information, different guides and quoting tools and everything. So first thing, just to give you an idea, I know we've already talked about this, but for other folks who may watch, Sparks, we are an insurance brokerage, so we're not an insurance company. We work with over 100 insurance carriers on our back end. So we vet partners, we look for folks who are looking to be competitive in the market, folks who are looking to be long-term partners as well, rather than come in with low prices and then just raise their prices over the next so many years. So we go and we find those ideal partners on the insurance side. Some things about us. So we were the fastest growing brokerage in 2023, focusing on medical transport space. We have a number of NEMT ex-operators and partners on staff as well. So folks who have been in the shoes of providers and have seen businesses close down because of insurance costs, have seen wild requirements from transport brokers in the past. So we've lived many of the lives that folks who may be watching have lived. And so that's why we actually started Sparks and NEMT Protect as a way of helping that way. And here's something that many folks should be asking their brokers as well. So unlike most brokers, we are a no commission brokerage. Everyone is salaried. So we are placing your policy with the best rate rather than looking for, the middle priced or high priced policy where we get a piece of that and we're happy because it's higher. We're looking instead for the best rates, the best coverage. So aligning our incentives with the folks that we work with. So that's just to give you, a little bit of where our authority comes from. So we are NEMT specialists. It's all that we do on the NEMT Protect side, and we think we come in with the best stance in the market. So the first thing that we'll look at, and what many folks may not realize, when you're looking at the largest line item in your insurance, that commercial auto, so the protection on your vehicles, and also the protection for when your vehicles hit someone else's property, maybe they hit a person, right? That's the commercial auto package. That is an entire industry. It's not just NEMT, it's trucking, it's vans, it's the Amazon delivery drivers. All of that is commercial auto. That is a huge multi-billion dollar industry that NEMT is a slight sliver of. But because NEMT gets grouped into this greater industry, it leads to hugely insane prices for NEMT operators today. So some of the big items that I always point out, commercial auto insurance as a whole has lost money for the last 12 years, except for 2020, when during COVID, no one was on the road. So it was the easiest year to make money in commercial auto insurance. Because of that, every year, insurance carriers are raising rates so that they can potentially turn a profit on this insurance, and they never do. So that's just the reality of what commercial auto as a class is. $59 billion of commercial auto is written every year, but only 0.2% of that is the NEMT sector. And what you'll find is that NEMT specific coverage, so if you were to just slice out the NEMT portion and medical transport, it is a profitable sector that sees less claims than the totality of commercial auto. So what folks see is that as their insurance rates rise with the rest of the industry, they are paying for the losses that truckers are getting, that Amazon delivery drivers are getting, that anything from like restaurant delivery to small local delivery, there are accidents that happen there at a far higher frequency than NEMT. And as a result, NEMT costs rise with that general market. So that's one thing where we've taken the position that there are these carriers that are underwriting not commercial auto as a whole, they're underwriting medical, so the medical transport side of things. And that's where most brokers fall short, is that they're looking at the traditional commercial auto rather than the medical opportunity. So to quickly give an overview on that, the number one place that we see savings is by working with healthcare-oriented underwriters in the insurance space. So insurance companies that know NEMT rather than just thinking of them as vans and transport. These are the folks that are looking at the number of trips being taken and the type of folks being transported rather than just the number of vans, how many miles are driven, right? So it's two different types of underwriting that lead to better pricing. The other thing that we're looking is at exhausting the market. So like I mentioned, we have over 100 carriers in our back end, and those split between different states and different fleet sizes. And so we are looking to shop at least 20 carriers for each partner that we work with. So we should, and any broker should, be exhausting the market for all of those savings opportunities on these policies, which most folks are looking at maybe 1, 2, or 3 carriers that they usually work with. So it's another huge area of initial savings that folks can unlock. And then the third big area is obviously no commission brokers. They are very few and far between in the market. So something that folks should be asking of their broker, hey, how do you get paid when you place a policy of mine, right? So something that we always encourage folks to look at. I'll pause here because this is probably the number one place that we usually see folks go, I didn't know there was a difference, right? I didn't know that commercial auto was one type of insurance, and I'm getting commercial auto, but you're telling me insurance companies that you work with value my commercial auto differently than another group, right? So if there are any questions, you let me know on those two fronts, because it's for many folks a different concept than what they usually see.
Yes, yes. I know that that's when we first met up, and I was speaking with, oh, give me his name again. I just went left with my
That was Ricky. That was my co-founder. Yeah.
Ricky, yes. When I was speaking with Ricky, and he was bringing across these points on the difference of commercial versus healthcare, and me being a nurse, I'm like, that is so true, because we are, I don't get professional insurance necessarily through an insurance company. I would go through in a professional organization like the American Nursing Association or someone else of that nature to get specialized health care insurance and healthcare transportation, non-emergency medical transportation. We're transporting humans. We're transporting people with healthcare needs. Even though it's not emergency, it's still healthcare. So a lot of times, again, like you said, we're being penalized, or the industry is being penalized for the mistakes of others who are not even in our industry or in the healthcare industry. So I'm just so grateful that you all have noticed that gap in the market and are helping to correct that wrong. Because even now, I'm researching different areas. I'm working with a client in Virginia and researching the insurance requirements, and they're still pretty fair, but in some states, it's just getting out of control. the amount of coverage that's being required. And yes, when accidents happen in NEMT, they are generally serious. I granted that. I get that. When they happen, they're fairly, extensive. But I don't hear about major accidents as often as we hear about major collisions and major, you hear about airplanes dropping more than I hear about, so it's really good that it's starting to get categorized in the right area.
Exactly. And that's, I think, in part, like you had mentioned, it's driven largely by healthcare professionals that we've been able to, as an industry, continue to single folks out and say, well, nursing is different from general physicians, right? Why are we not pricing this differently, right? In the same way, NEMT, like you're saying, we have folks that we're driving, right? Why are we grouped in with trucks who are far more expensive, crash more often? They're on highways, right? We're not necessarily always on highways. So it's the small things that folks may say that's just how it is, but the reality is it's changing, and enabling more folks to keep up with these changing and more stringent insurance requirements from transport brokers, Medicare, Medicaid, from private contracts. It allows them to make those changes without seeing a 3-4x increase in their insurance costs. So this is, as I'll put it in this presentation, the number one way that we're seeing these huge price reductions. So I largely encourage folks to talk to their current brokers or even talk to us to learn a little bit more about who those markets are, where they can come in, to be able to provide, a new place for them to bring their insurance costs. So that's on the commercial auto versus healthcare side. The next area we'll look at is on the processes of these individual operators, and something that I'm sure you have talked a lot about to your operators. So each of these, I think a lot of time in these types of presentations, people can give overarching, just broad strokes. Hey, you should have less operational crashes, right? Have the telematics in there. That's like the big buzzword. And I always feel I walk away from presentations like that and I go, you didn't really tell me anything. So what I'm doing in this slide is giving very specific points of, if an operator doesn't have this, get this, and you will have a lower cost on your insurance. These are big pivotal data points that, if we tell the story with these data points involved to a carrier, they're going to take off anywhere from a few hundred to thousands of dollars on the insurance cost. So preventing claims obviously is the number one game in insurance. If an insurance company sees that you're not having potential accidents, potential claims on your policy over the course of 1 to 2 years, then your price comes down. So the most clear ways that we've seen folks do that are on the vehicle side. We love maintenance programs. So actually actively providing maintenance on your fleet, because the worst thing that can happen is some sort of vehicle error outside of your control that leads to an accident, or some sort of major repair that then is required for the insurance to come in and fix. So a written vehicle maintenance sheet, and then a record of the repairs, whether that's for an in-house mechanic or a local mechanic that is certified on your specific type of vehicles, that they just keep a record of what they did to the vehicles and how regularly they do it. That is the one of the top things we've seen, keeping these fleets on the road, properly taken care of at all times. Pre and post trip inspections is another huge one. So just quickly identifying any issues with the vehicle before getting it out on the road, and then doing a quick check after trips have been done, that there have been no dings, there are no flat tires, right? Basic things that add maybe 5 minutes on the day for a driver, but make a huge difference on your potential claims and then also your insurance cost. Telematics, like I had mentioned, some folks will just kind of throw out that word, but realistically, the baseline thing you need is that GPS tracking. So not just, hey, where am I GPS, but you as an operational owner, directing drivers, being able to see where the vans are at all times. And many fleet management systems have this now. So if you don't have the GPS tracking and fleet monitoring, that is a huge plus and is a pretty inexpensive addition now that there are so many competitors offering it. Dash cams, another easy addition, and there's a lot of anywhere from $30 to $50 options on Amazon. Anything that is monitoring the outside, and if you have something monitoring the inside as well, that's always great. But so when folks toss out telematics as this fancy word, we're monitoring the fleet where it is, and then dash cams to make sure if an accident happens, you can tell the insurance company, I didn't do it. Look at the footage, right?
That's right. That's
Yep.
right. That's right.
On the driver's side, this is another great way. This is a lot of where the underwriting focuses on as well. So how safe are your cars, and then how safe are your drivers? So trainings highly necessary and actually make your business more efficient. So you should have written training or video training that your drivers can train on the first moment they enter your business. Retraining, we suggest at least annually, just refreshing folks on if you do stretchers, how to properly transport folks. If you do wheelchair, how to load and unload. And then especially on driving practices. So how to take specific routes if you have major and minor roads in your area. Defensive driving and CPR training, very classic. So many folks already do this, but making sure this is done on a regular cadence, and especially for each new driver that's brought in. Discipline. This is something that may be a touchy subject, but as folks have minor and major accidents, so maybe that's bumping the car on a pole or a full collision, something where we are communicating that to drivers, giving them an incentive program is another major piece of underwriting. So let's say you are adding $15 a month just for folks who, do not, there are no crashes on that vehicle. So providing ways to continually check in with drivers, make sure there are not accidents happening, and encouraging them to stay in check with your safety practices. Hiring as well, doing the things I have listed here. If you're following these as a guideline on how to hire a driver, insurance costs come way down. So drug testing, background checks, keeping drivers between 23 and 70. Obviously, you can hire outside of that range, but if you keep within 23 and 70, every insurance carrier is going to have a better time with you, just by nature of what the data says. So folks 23 to 70 tend to be the safest. And then MVRs are a huge one. If we're checking those annually, at least annually, those are your motor vehicle records, the total record of any accidents that driver has had. You should be checking that at the hiring stage, especially if folks have had many major accidents in the past. Probably not the best hire for the business.
Right.
And then equipment for folks who are in the vehicle driving. Many folks will use cell phones as GPS devices. Having a hands-free holder for that to prevent folks from being distracted while driving is actually, as silly as it is, a major underwriting piece and something that makes a huge difference for drivers. And then we also, one partner of ours, the No Lift NEMT system, is a great addition for stretcher movement. So it's a easier stretcher, a nice device that allows folks to more safely move folks from their bed to the vehicle and to the next bed. So something to keep in mind, there's always new ways to make the business more efficient and increase safety for moving patients, for interacting with patients, to just stay abreast of as they come up. And then for the last thing that you need to make sure your broker is doing as they are shopping for new insurance, any claims that do happen, make sure they're fighting for you with the insurance company that you're currently with. Tell the story of what happened in that claim, provide any evidence that happened during that claim, and make sure that you're explaining why that shouldn't happen again, any precautionary steps you are now taking to prevent any claims from happening in the future. Many brokers just let this renew because the price goes up and it doesn't really matter to them. But they should be fighting for you at that renewal to say why you won't see that claim again so that the insurance company can keep the price down. So that's on the very specific. If you're following every piece of this list, one, the business should become more efficient and safer. And then two, insurance companies truly recognize these things. And the difference between, yes, we have hiring practices for drivers versus no is a few $100s at that top line of the insurance. And so if you're stacking all of these practices together, it's a whole chunk of cash that comes off of the insurance cost.
Wow. I do have a quick question. That is a lot of information. I love it. I love it. So now I know I'm no longer in NEMT, but I'm thinking what they need to, at the beginning when they're shopping around, have all of their information together to present to their broker to show that the driver has all of their defensive driving, their CPR, their MVR records. Would they also need to have their written maintenance program on hand to show the maintenance of that vehicle at the start of it and the proof of? So do they have to have all of that together in one file and then submit it to the broker at that time?
So you're right. It is a lot of information. What we recommend, when you're doing an application with a broker, it's usually just one or two applications that you fill out. Some brokers, if they're going to shop a lot of markets, they'll have multiple. We use one universal one, but a lot of these are at the start just yes, no questions on the application. So do you hire drivers and do a drug test? Yes, right? So not necessarily needing proof at the time of application. I will say some insurance companies will ask for proof after the fact to make sure that you're practicing what you're preaching. But realistically, you don't have to hold all these in one nice package at that time. And then as folks may ask, then you can deliver it. So I wouldn't encourage folks, obviously, to provide any false statements because insurance companies will check. You don't have to have everything in one place for sure. But I would say you should be doing a lot of these because it will make your business better. And then on top of that, if an insurance company asks for that proof, you'll be able to pull it from different places as that comes up. But no one will ask for proof of all of these, except for the MVRs is a recurring ask from every insurance company because they want to know too, what was the driving history of this driver? We'll run it through our system and see what the price comes out to based on that. So that's one thing that's a classic ask, but everything else is usually asked for, maybe never or after the fact it might come up, but that's pretty much it.
And I do agree with you 100% that having all of these things in place is the best thing for your business, because I can assure you, if you don't have these things in place, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because one thing pop off if you don't have that dash cam in the back or in the front, and you don't know where your driver is. I experienced that, and it is a mess in your business. So I can definitely see how I can definitely say to our viewers, this list right here is something that you want to implement, and don't just check the box that you have them. Go ahead and make sure you have them in place.
Exactly. Excuse me. So that's what we practice as well for the folks that we work with, having everything in place and then looking for that proof after the fact. And all of these things are only there to make you better. So
that's right.
Looking at the requirements are obviously going to change state by state, and as we've talked about, a lot of these terms are the same thing in commercial auto generally, because that's what these policies are, is commercial auto protection. But like I mentioned, a lot of these changing requirements lead to higher insurance costs, and you can fight that by looking at the healthcare specific markets that will value you and price you differently. So one thing that many folks will always see, obviously, is commercial auto, and that protects you against lawsuits that happen if your driver were to hit someone else's property, maybe hit a person and lead to medical payments, or while transporting a patient in the vehicle, if something were to go wrong, they fall out of a seat and get hurt. This is where that liability comes into place as well. So the typical liability limit that's required by transport brokers or by private contracts is anywhere from $500K to $1 million in a CSL, which is a single limit, a combined single limit. So many folks, what you'll see is on your policy, it's just one big number. That's this big number. This is like I mentioned, the liability side. And then the symbols that everyone talks about, many folks get confused here. These symbols represent the type of coverage that this provides. Symbol 7 is your scheduled autos. So that's when you give the insurance company and the transport broker or contract a list of the vehicles you will specifically be using for transport. Many companies accept that still. So MTM, Access to Care, One Call, a lot of these folks will accept just symbol 7. And that's the most popular one. That's what many folks used. Symbol 289 or symbol 1 is the new coverage that I work with a lot of folks on because it's the new transition that Motive Care is requiring. Many folks I know, you've probably worked with many folks who work with motive care. It is a real pain of a transition right now because folks come to us and they say, I've been using symbol 7 for all these years. What even are these other symbols? Why are they requiring this? And now my old broker is telling me my cost is going up 3x because I'm getting this new coverage. And that's what's tough, is that many operators are just told this is what you now require. They don't know what it does. So I wanted to give a little bit of information on this to show what kind of value an operator can actually get out of that symbol change, while they're also meeting the requirements of motive care. So symbol 2 represents all owned autos. And what that means is you are still giving motive care a list of the vans that you'll be using for transport or cars in there. But if one of the vans gets taken off the road and you need to get a rental van for that day, or a driver uses a personal van for a quick trip to go pick up a patient, but usually uses the commercial vans, that all owned autos covers all autos in the business. So something that, motive care really is trying to prevent random vans from getting claims that don't have coverage, right? So it's a slightly expanded form of coverage, and it protects both motive care more, but also the operator. Symbol 8 and 9, that's your underinsured motorist, and your all non-owned and owned autos. So for the non-owned, that's when your employee is driving their car, and that covers their personal autos as well. And again, for those rental cars. So the 8 and 9 just get more specific on those types of vehicles. Nice. 1 is, again, just totality. It's the biggest form. It's the most expanded. It's just all autos used. So again, something that motive care is requiring this more expanded coverage in order to better protect you as an operator and also protect them from any lawsuits that might sue the provider, but then also come and sue motive care. So something where it provides both parties more protection. This definitely is a more expensive coverage, but we mitigate that again using the healthcare underwriters specifically.
So
yes.
The question on that. So now, are we saying that we are required to have symbol 7 and symbol 2.89 with motive care, just symbol 7, like with the other brokers, MTN, access to care, all of those. So that's where the general for symbol 7 for those. But then if we're going with motive care, we're seeing that that's going to be an additional coverage that's required. Is that what I'm hearing?
So that's a great question. What we're seeing, so symbol 7, the traditional coverage that most people have, works for MTM, access to care, one call, and a lot of these providers. And what you'll find is that motive care, since they're requiring the symbol 289 or symbol 1, folks come to us and they say, like you just asked, do I need this now separately? Am I going to be paying for 2 insurance policies at once? What we do instead, so you can hold that symbol 289 or symbol 1. That works for motive care and for any other transport provider because it's a more inclusive coverage. So folks usually like to stick with symbol 7 rather than switching over. But if motive care is a major provider of transports for you, it's easier to just switch into that coverage. It'll be slightly more expensive, but something that now works for motive care and all your other transport brokers.
Okay, so just to get clarification, so I'm thinking if I'm a transportation provider, it'd just be more if I know that I have all 3 of these in my area and I'm going to work with all 3 brokerages, that it's probably just better for me to get the symbol 2.8 or 289 or 1. The issue would be is that I have elevated cost factor there, but that's being offset because we're going in through healthcare transportation rather than commercial. Do I have that right?
Exactly right.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Yeah. And most folks, they come to that conclusion because motive care tells them they have to. Essentially, it's sort of an after the fact thing. But definitely for new providers, if you're looking to partner with motive care and other transport brokers, it may be easier to just from the get-go start with this more expansive special coverage that allows you to do motive care trips and trips for other brokers. So that's 100% correct. On the additionals line that I just outlined here, I mentioned these things because a lot of brokers leave these out, and folks don't realize until they submit a claim and they get told you're not covered. So huge mistakes that happen in the industry. So something we're working again with a specialist helps to mitigate a lot of this. But property damage is a big one. So what we just talked about was only liability. If you want protection for when your car gets hit or there's damage to your vehicles, you need property damage protection. And that is a very easy thing to add in, but is a very easy thing for a broker to tell someone, sure, you have it, and they don't show that they actually have it. So something that everyone should be asking of their broker that it's included in the coverage. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage. So let's say someone's driving without coverage, or they're driving with a very small policy that, if they hit your car, their policy doesn't pay out at all or very little. This is now extra coverage on your policy so that your insurance company can cover that without dinging you for, the extra claims on your account. The towing is, so if the car shuts down on the road, you need a towing company. It helps protect that. And then rental coverage. If there is an accident that happens and you need a rental car for a few days, it pays for the cost of that. So those last few things are nice add-ons, but definitely something where you should ask your broker if you really want that, and that has happened to you in the past, and you want the rental car covered, the towing covered, you should be asking that of your broker because many folks just leave it out. So something to keep in mind as folks are shopping around there. And then the general and professional liability section, that is the other classic required coverage from transport brokers and contractors. And very similarly, it ranges anywhere from 500K to $1 million in the per occurrence, and then anywhere from $1 million to $3 million in the aggregate. Mostly what we see is the 1 million to the 2 to 3 million. And what that means is you're looking for this general or professional liability. Let's say a driver of yours, while transporting someone out of their bed, there is an injury that occurs. That helps protect those types of those accidents. And it per occurrence, so per injury that could happen, it protects up to $1 million. And then for the total year in aggregate, it pays out anywhere from $2 to $3 million. And so most folks, we obviously recommend getting this coverage from the get-go. Many folks don't get it until the first, 2 or 3 years into the business. But if you're working with a transport broker or some sort of contract, they usually require this. And then the additionals here, usually I would ask that folks package this with the commercial auto they're buying, because it comes out cheaper. And that's just another nice add-on on top of all this. And then SAM coverage is commonly required too. So you should be asking your broker about that. That's the sexual abuse and molestation, which is just a regular contract requirement in a lot of these, and is a very easy add-on to these types of policies. So I'll pause there. Those are the necessary evils on the insurance side. Many folks hate to see a lot of this, but at the end of the day, it is protection for you. And so you should be getting the value out of it rather than, again, checking that box every year just to have it. So really understanding what you're buying rather than just trusting blanket what folks might be telling you.
That's right. That's right. I love this conversation. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
Of course. So the last things we'll highlight, just some examples. And if this resonates with any folks, just know that other folks have been in the same shoes with you. So we just worked with a transport company in North Carolina where the limit is actually 1.5 million for auto. So it's even more expensive. And that's a North Carolina thing. Most states are 1 million, but it's just an expensive limit there. So what we found was that at renewal, the original broker had purchased Symbol 7 coverage, even though I&J Wheelchair had requested that they buy this 289 coverage for Motive Care. So they come to us knowing that their insurance is wrong and that their broker made a mistake, and we need to turn around something to fix it so that Motive Care doesn't shut them down. So what we did was work with them to cancel that incorrectly purchased policy and put into place this Symbol 289 coverage very quickly so that they could get back on the road with Motive Care, because they were getting threats to get shut down. And, you talk to your rep at Motive Care, folks can tell you nothing about the insurance. They don't understand any of it. They are as confused as you, but they just know it's a requirement. So they're requiring it of you. So we were able to obviously come in and help out there, help folks understand what was going on and get back on the road with that broker quickly. Another good one, so Quality Care, what we did for them, they saw that one claim increased their insurance by another 20K or so, up to 145K for those 12 vehicles they were working with. So what we were able to do is at their renewal, negotiate with our carriers on our end in order to justify what happened with that claim, show the changes that they've made to their business to prevent those claims, and then obviously taking them to our healthcare specific underwriters to lower that cost as well for their fleet. So again, if this resonates with anyone, folks are in the same position as you. You're not alone in a lot of this. It's definitely something that has been an issue for NEMT and medical transport, and something where hopefully we can help out in a lot of ways. So this is where we usually pause for Q&A and stuff, but I'll leave up my contact too for any folks who say, this has been great. I want to learn a little bit more. This is my personal cell, so folks can call and text me with any questions that come up, but I'll pause there. You let me know if there are any other questions that you think folks might be interested in hearing about.
I've got a couple.
Okay, let's do it.
I love it. So, just going back now to the last slide, I just want to make a comment on that how important, because we call them in healthcare in services. And so what happens is that there's an incident and, we have to report it to the state or something. We have to do a corrective action. So what we'll do is get a statement from everyone, and everyone tells what happened, including the resident. And then we send it off to DHEC and all the other individuals that need to be done. And we show that plan of correction. So here I can see how that can just transcend right on into transportation, because if you have an incident, like you said, your broker needs to be able to vouch for you and advocate for you that this is not going to happen again. So having that plan of correction already done at the time of the incident, rather than trying to back up and fix things, that's going to be a big help at negotiating those rates down, especially with larger issues. And then my question was, when we go back to a couple of slides back, and you talked about I didn't even know that those were add-ons. Yes, the property damage, the uninsured, the underinsured, towing and rental. I had no idea that you could even add these on. So with the 289 or 1, since it's not a scheduled, I'm just make sure I have this right again. Since it's not a scheduled, you can go out and technically go rent a vehicle. Say, for instance, an ambulatory vehicle. You can go rent an ambulatory vehicle and put it into service through the company mode of care and be back on the road with that vehicle. Do I have that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's why they put this in place, because a lot of times folks will, they're very diligent at the start. They give their list of vehicles and they're just using those vans. But let's say something comes up, that van has an accident, they need to rent something. That van is technically not covered under the partnership with mode of care. So this type of coverage allows you to go do that. You're doing a few rides there as the car is getting fixed up. You should, I will say, still tell mode of care just so they know which vans you're using. But that is a type of coverage that helps you in that situation.
That is awesome, because that really happens all the time.
All the time.
Like all the time. I mean, if I could have had that when, my vehicle had brake problems, if I could have just ran up the street and went to Mobility Works and rented out a vehicle, I would have been okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Running. That's an awesome save. I love that. And I think that is worth the additional money, honestly, to put that, to invest in that ability to be able to switch out your vehicle in the case yours is down. And especially towing and towing with the wheelchair vehicle or a stretcher vehicle. I mean, you're still talking industry trucking rates to get those things towed, especially when they know you're a business. So yeah.
It's just something that, they're available. I don't know how many folks miss out on this, because when we talk to folks, it's always a light bulb moment of, I didn't know that was even available. But it's so easy for us on our side when we're consulting with folks on their risk and how ideally they want a lot of this covered when an accident happens. It's a checkbox. We say we're going to add this in, and then we negotiate with the insurance company on what that rate will be. So many folks really, when they're working with a broker, it's so, sort of one-sided. The broker knows everything. Folks just say, this is how it is. This is what I get. So really make a lot of this insurance work for you by asking these questions. Hey, when I get towed, I want coverage there. I know it's not that much more expensive, so I want you to include it, right? Just knowing that these things exist allow folks to have better conversations around their coverage and what they're actually getting for the dollar they're spending. So that's where this is our hopeful give back to the community, is ask these questions so that you actually get value out of what you're buying.
I love it. I love it. And I think that, insurance is one of the scariest things outside of financials, that you have to think about as a new entrepreneur, especially. And we see a lot of new entrepreneurs taking, money that they've worked hard for, that they've saved for, and investing, into their companies, and not having all the answers, and what is it called? Giving the information. So I so appreciate your give back, because you're helping so many people to understand exactly what is going on in the industry and what questions we can ask, and need to ask. So
Yeah.
I so appreciate everything you've shown today. It is such a big help, and it'll
Of
definitely.
course. Yeah, no, I hope that folks, again, they continue to ask questions, because I hear this all the time. I'm paying 130K for my coverage and my broker doesn't respond to me. I'm confused all the time. It's a huge purchase. It's a top three line item for most folks in the space. So it's something where you should ask all the questions you want. You should understand what you're getting and get full value out of it. So that's where, as new questions come up, I always tell folks to just reach out to me. Whether or not it's to work with us, I want to make sure folks are not confused. So any quick questions, or, hey, here's my policy, what does any of this even mean? We always like helping out there. So as it comes up, hopefully we can continue to help out, and keep this like huge cost, well, keep it down for folks, but also help them understand what they're actually buying in the day to day.
That's awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Niko, for being here. I'm so glad that Ricky reached out to me and we were able to make this meeting happen. This has been so informative. And I just want to remind our viewers to please reach out. If you do have questions on insurance and healthcare transportation costs, please reach out to Sparks and have them to break down your insurance variables so that you can make sure that you are getting the value for the dollars you're spending. All right. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you guys soon. Be blessed.